Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. I got an article with the protagonist being Ukraine and Russia and their scuffle, and we hear that, or we find that the Russians still have rockets and missiles, and they conducted an attack in Mykolaiv, and that's the southern part of Ukraine. If you look at Kherson, then you have Mykolaiv, and then if you go a little bit west, you go to Odessa, and you go a little bit west, you go to Transnistria, go to Moldova, Romania, and blah blah blah. So let's see who's having an offensive here. This article comes from Ukrinform from today, July 31st, 2022. This is the title: Massive shelling of Mykolaiv. Russia fired almost 40 missiles. Russian forces fired about 40 rockets at Mykolaiv early on July 31st. It was one of the largest attacks since the beginning of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The head of the Mykolaiv regional council, Hanna Zamazeyeva, said this in a Telegram post Ukrinform report. And I'm quoting: "My city, the hero city of Mykolaiv, is becoming a second Mariupol. About 40 rockets have been fired at Mykolaiv tonight. This is one of the largest attacks against the city since the beginning of the all-out invasion," she wrote. It was not all-out invasion, my dear, because you would see some other weapons used over there, and you would see maybe all-out invasion. I don't know. You would see more than you saw last night, but it is an invasion. We can't deny that. Right. She said the city is being purposely killed and called on the whole world not to be silent, but to shut about the terrible actions of the terrorist country. Remember terrorist country? The United States introduced the House of the Representatives of the U.S. Congress introduced a bill to call the Russian Federation a terrorist state. All right, so what's gonna happen? Nada. Let's go. I'm gonna make an article on that, or a video on that little article in a minute. Early on July 31st, after 1 a.m. and at around 5 a.m. Mykolaiv came under massive shelling. I would like to know what they shelled, right? So they tell us. Several infrastructure facilities were damaged by the shelling, including a hotel, a sports center, 2 educational institutions, and a service station. Residential buildings were also damaged. Do you believe that? I don't discard the possibility. But did you hear any military target? Did you hear any? Nah. And they want us to believe that. So Hanna, the Ukrainian Hanna, maybe you ask, why do I overemphasize that name? I've never heard that name in my life until I came to the United States. Hanna. I never had a person named Hanna in school, in life, until I came to the United States. And check its origin. It's not that John is the same origin, and all kind of, but Hanna. Maybe the Ukrainians have that in their cultural and tradition. Hanna. Maybe Hanna Zelensky. That would fit. All right, let's go and see what's going on here. So this is the. So these guys hit, it seems like all the targets are residential, as they point out, right? What can you do? Now don't get me wrong, if these guys are hitting these kind of targets, there's a considered war crime, if you kill civilians and so on. But if it's considered a war crime when the Russians are doing it, and if they're doing it, then it should be considered a war crime when NATO did it. Oh, when did it do it? Example I always use, I use that example and only that one, because I don't want these guys here to because it's documented, it's evidence is there, so it can't be denied and challenged. That's why I use all the time this example, and I suggest you use it too if you have other ones which we have from Yugoslavia 1999, when the defensive organization called NATO, they bombed, they hit the Chinese embassy in Belgrade, the capital of Serbia, and people died over there, staff members. The Chinese did not forget that, neither did how do you call them, the Serbs. The Serbs claimed, and I remember reading all kind of news at that time, saying that the NATO bombing destroyed kindergartens, power stations, and schools, and blah blah, the same kind of thing as here, but they were not called terrorist actions, or they were not called war crimes. No president or prime minister was brought forth to stand trial in front of the the International Court of Justice, but Milosevic was he went over there, and he died in the process. But so those were not crimes, so therefore these ones could not be, because if these are, they match the same description and definition of those ones. So then if these meet the criteria to be called war crimes and terrorist bombings and so on, then the other ones do the same. And they said, they claimed then in 1999, those were I never heard about this word until then, collateral damage. And if it's collateral damage, they invented a euphemism for war crimes when it worked against them. So instead of saying, killing civilians and blah, 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 the Chinese embassy, they said collateral damage. So maybe all this sports center, hotel, 2 educational institutions, and a service station were all collateral damage. That means, we try to destroy the military, but sometimes there are damage collateral around it, but they will not call that. Don't get me wrong on this one, because I don't I don't condone this kind of behavior, obviously. But if you want to be just, and you really want to be just, you have to look for the truth, and you have to have the courage to stay strong, and you have to be smart. And then you find that, and you come and say, you know what, if that was a crime, that was a crime too. And if these guys are going to be indicted for war crimes and terrorist activities, those guys should be too. And this is the easiest example, because it's the same guys who point fingers. I'm not saying about Ukrainians, because the Ukrainians are just used here, and they're going to be killed and destroyed and all that, and the Russians too, because there are other games outside of their class that have an impact on their lives in a very, very definitive way. Thank you very much for being with me again today. 40 missiles, rockets, that's a lot in one morning. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, find it, and then be just. See you in a moment.